who looks outside, dreams, who looks inside, awakes. Carl Jung. Have you ever felt like a faint shadow slipping through other people's lives, silently wondering, why does it feel like nobody notices when I walk into a room? This isn't simply a social misstep, it's a reverberation from childhood for those who grew up feeling ignored. They carry the belief, I'm not worthy of being seen. Childhood drawings, carefree laughter, shared stories, all swept away by adult silence. No lingering gaze, no encouraging word. Over time, their brains learn to downsize their needs, avoid asking, and hide emotions. Silence is safe, but stepping into adulthood doesn't heal that wound. In relationships, this person might either cling desperately, craving affection because they know deprivation too well, or pull away from intimacy, fearing closeness will only lead to disappointment. They'll listen to your stories for hours, but never dare reveal the smallest shard of their own vulnerability. Then one day, they pause and ask themselves, am I just overly sensitive? Or am I secretly longing for something the world seems determined to ignore? The key isn't in finding someone who finally notices you, it's in learning to awaken the echo within. Because only when you acknowledge your own need to be understood can you begin to unlock the door to true healing. Some children resemble fallen leaves, drifting silently in a noisy family stream, never lit by a guiding spark, never cradled warmly in an embrace. They don't cry loudly. They don't demand. They don't create commotion. They teach themselves to endure in silence, to nestle in the shadows so as not to become burdensome. These children grow up to silent dinners where conversations only happen on the television screen, grow up among their parents' hurried, forced smiles as work pulls them away, grow up in bedrooms filled more with sighs than with footsteps. Their birthdays pass like any other day, their drawings are tucked away in drawers, and their dinner greetings echo once and then vanish into phone conversations. Time after time, they learn that their needs do not merit attention, that their voice is not weighty enough to claim a genuine moment. Over time, that boy or girl believes their existence must be fragile and dim, so as not to put anyone to awkwardness. When they find their voice, instead of receiving answers or warm looks, they encounter emptiness, the silence, like an invisible wall between two worlds. It's not that they don't want to name their own feelings or express emotions, but simply that they lose faith in the notion that speaking out leads to being heard. And so avoidance becomes a reflex, avoiding requests, avoiding conflict, even avoiding joy out of fear it will leave without bidding farewell. By the time they reach adulthood, those who were once ignored carry within them a peculiar inner current. They can appear fiercely independent, refusing to ask for help, terrified of relying on anyone. This independence might look like a virtue of resilience, but beneath it lies the fear of being brushed off once more. They choose to remain silent in meetings rather than voice opinions, to nurture emotions in private rather than share with friends, to keep distance in love instead of opening up. Their composed exterior masks a mind always on guard. When I speak, does anyone truly listen? When I need, does anyone truly show up? Worse, many have converted being ignored into a measure of self-worth. If you're not mentioned, you're not good enough. If you're praised once but not twice, that praise must have been mere formality. They become hypersensitive to every pause, every unsteady footstep that doesn't halt at them. And to defend themselves, they learn to keep busy, never allowing space to ponder whether they are being forgotten. Work, hobbies, personal projects become the most effective shield to conceal unhealed wounds. Yet, within this resilience dwells the seed of loneliness. They can live among crowds, laugh boisterously, but when night falls, they hear the echo of an empty heart. They know how to observe, to empathize with others deeply, but when they ask, "What do I need?" they find no answer. They have mastered invisibility so well that they forget they have the right to exist. And this is the most painful phenomenon. A soul capable of living but never knowing it deserves to live. Having grasped how loneliness and silence quietly sculpt the personalities of children who were ignored, we now turn to decoding the process, how a seemingly simple experience, never being heard, becomes so deeply embedded in the psyche that it forms a lifelong psychological blueprint In developmental psychology, this phenomenon is called the internalized neglect schema. When children are too young to understand that their parents' silence may be due to exhaustion or distraction rather than indifference, their brains cannot differentiate between "they are not listening because they are busy" and "I am not worthy of being heard." Without the emotional vocabulary or cognitive maturity to process that distinction, children unconsciously jump to conclusions. "I am not important," "my feelings are a burden," and "the less I express myself, the safer I am." Each unanswered question, each unacknowledged drawing, each overlooked achievement plants a seed of false belief that must be watered by continued neglect. Shrink my needs, hide my emotions, become invisible. Over time, these beliefs slip beneath conscious awareness. Children stop asking questions, cease celebrating their own joys, and eventually stop believing they have the right to occupy any emotional space in someone else's mind. Rather than soaring with dreams and aspirations, they learn to land quietly, to avoid causing ripples. As adolescence and adulthood arrive, this mechanism remains active in the form of automatic defenses, avoiding praise for fear of not deserving it, choosing silence over sharing because no one cares, and distancing themselves whenever they sense they are uninvited. All of this is not a sign of weakness, but a defense system hardwired from early childhood. Recognizing the internalized neglect schema is the first step toward breaking this cycle of self-neglect. Once we understand that the fear of losing attention stems not from innate traits, but from years of being overlooked, we can bravely ask ourselves the critical question, "Am I worthy of being seen?" and gradually learn to open up, accept praise, and claim the empathy we have always craved. And from that forgotten child, a silent journey began to take shape. And no matter how time flowed on, those invisible wounds quietly etched themselves into every nerve. Upon crossing into adulthood, those who bore memories of being overlooked could never fully wash away the defense system programmed in their earliest years. They carried that map into every relationship, especially at the threshold of love, the realm of trust and intimacy. Here, those childhood experiences metamorphose into two primary reaction patterns: anxious attachment, clinginess, and avoidant attachment. From forgotten child to adult with avoidant tendencies is a transition both delicate and weighty. When, as children, each unacknowledged call of their name, each unnoticed drawing, each indifferent response to their joy, imprinted onto their consciousness the unspoken rule, "If I speak up, silence is the ultimate out." Gradually, that thought ceased to be a fleeting moment of loneliness. It became a life jacket, a self-preservation lifeline to shield the heart from further harm. When a heart has withered from never being nourished by praise or warm attention, in relationships they fall into anxious attachment. Every promise, every handhold, every good morning text becomes a soul's tonic. They fear their partner's silence, for in their subconscious whispers the warning, affection will vanish. Hence they startle at the slightest pause, convinced that stillness heralds distance, and once more they will fade from someone's heart. Conversely, some choose avoidant attachment. They withdraw into a protective shell because their past taught them intimacy equals disappointment. The more they love, the more terrified they are to reveal their vulnerabilities, worried that if touched, loneliness will surge back more fiercely than ever. As a result, they maintain distance, rarely meeting your gaze when discussing feelings, avoiding leisurely togetherness without tasks to do. They'd rather stand by as a silent confidant, never divulging the hidden corners of their own heart. Loving an avoidant person is like moving through a long, unlit tunnel. You may glimpse the end, but you dare not reach it. Fearing the sky awaits beyond a blank wall of rejection and silence. They know how to place themselves in others' shoes, yet fail to let others walk in theirs. They give time, care, advice, but believe they cannot receive reciprocity. Deep down, they whisper, "If I were worthy, wouldn't someone have proven it long ago?" The cruelest irony is they do need love. Their souls yearn for a haven, a complete embrace, a genuine word. Yet they don't know how to be loved without sacrificing the safety they've painstakingly built over years. They dread that opening up will topple their defenses, leaving their heart exposed to an emotional storm, so they choose silence, select emotional distance, and shield themselves with an appearance of aloofness or excessive distant care. A relationship with an avoidant partner thus resembles a moonlit dance. You can reach out, but you might never touch, and round you spin in muted light, suspended between hope and disappointment. You notice they appear when you need a shoulder, vanish when you need a heart. They listen to every gritty detail of your terrible day, yet when you ask, "How about you?" they only offer a shy smile and a lowered gaze. So how do you dismantle this defense apparatus that has rooted itself in their unconscious? First, understand that they are not the enemy of the relationship. It's the unhealed wounds, the invisible trauma that bind them. Recognizing this, you can stop avoiding them and instead gently take the first steps toward genuine intimacy. By verbally acknowledging each other's needs, patiently allowing pauses, and encouraging them each time they dare to reveal a piece of their heart. Ultimately, love is not a battle for attention, but a journey walked side by side, learning together to appear and to be allowed to be seen. For those once forgotten, simply daring to exist is a miracle. When you bestow that miracle upon them, you not only heal a relationship, but help mend a soul long wounded. And from the moment we recognize the internalized neglect schema in our minds, we see clearly that our defense mechanisms did not arise from innate character traits, but from memories of being overlooked. Once we grasp this root of fear, we can transition into a new phase. Healing, being seen, begins with oneself. This journey does not demand that others immediately understand and meet every need you have. Rather, it is a step-by-step process in which you become the first person to recognize your own worth and right to be cared for. First, you must dare to say, "I'm tired," instead of defaulting to, "I'm fine." As a child, you learn to hide your exhaustion so as not to burden anyone else. But now, acknowledging your limits is a sign of self-respect. A simple phrase like, "I'm really tired today," may catch you off guard the first time you utter it, but it marks the moment you grow stronger than the old patterns that have kept you silent. Next, practice celebrating a small personal achievement rather than brushing it off as if it never happened. Perhaps it's finishing a minor project, receiving rare praise, or simply cooking a satisfying meal. Pause, take a deep breath, and allow yourself to smile. Then whisper to yourself, "I did well." This seemingly trivial gesture is a bullet that pierces the armor of insecurity built up over decades. Then, dare to say, "I need to be heard," even if only in your personal journal. Writing down your thoughts and feelings is not selfish. It is the first step in building a bridge between your heart and the world around you. Each page becomes a witness to the voice suppressed for so long, and seeing those words on paper helps you believe you deserve to be listened to and valued. Additionally, try a simple morning ritual. Each day before a mirror, look yourself in the eye and speak a positive affirmation. For example, "I deserve to be seen," or "My feelings matter." The first few times may feel awkward, but day by day, these words sink into your subconscious and help reshape your belief system. Because our brains do not sharply distinguish between reality and linguistic programming, repeating positive affirmations is retraining yourself to accept the truth. You matter. Healing also involves establishing healthy boundaries. If you once avoided conflict to never be abandoned again, now you learn to say no when something exceeds your limits. Refusal is not callousness. It is how you protect your inner peace. By honoring your boundaries, you send the unspoken message, "I am important enough to be safeguarded." External support, trusted friends, understanding family, or mental health professionals can be invaluable during this process. Yet reaching out for help is not an admission of weakness, but a demonstration of strength. You affirm, "I matter so much that I am willing to invest in my mental health." Finally, allow yourself to look back on your past with compassion. When you see the child who was once alone, You recognize their pain, real and profound, but instead of reproaching, offer understanding and embrace them. Write a letter to your younger self. Comfort them and vow that they will never be overlooked again. This act frees you from the cycle of self-blame and allows you to carry that memory as a lesson rather than a shackle. With each "I'm tired," each moment of self-celebration, each journal entry, each positive affirmation, each boundary set, and each letter to the past, you are weaving a patchwork for your soul. These seemingly small actions are silent revolutions, dismantling the shell of invisibility and revealing your true self, a person deserving to be seen, loved, and cherished. When you dare to see yourself, you open the door to genuine connection and lasting happiness. Once you have gradually shed each layer of insecurity through small yet revolutionary actions, you'll realize you are not merely healing, but crafting a new version of yourself. And this is when we arrive at the ultimate truth. You are not invisible. You are being reborn. A groundbreaking Harvard study on emotional neuroplasticity revealed each time someone who was once neglected receives positive emotional feedback, their nervous system registers it as a new signal of safety. In other words, every time you dare to raise your inner voice and receive a nod of understanding, a compassionate gaze, or an earnest word of encouragement, your brain does more than just feel safe in that moment. It rewires itself to connect. The neural pathways once damaged by coldness are gradually mended, each second infused with safety signals. You can relearn how to connect. You can teach your nervous system that closeness is no longer dangerous. With every step forward, that once invisible wound contracts, making way for trust and freedom. You are not merely being seen in fleeting moments. You are carving a lasting path for your soul, a path leading forward, not to evade pain, but to embrace life wholeheartedly. And the most beautiful part is, those who were once ignored often become the most empathetic healers in the world around them. They understand the power of a single look or word because they once lived without them. When they offer genuine attention to others, it goes beyond mere courtesy. It is an act of resurrection. They are sending out a signal of safety, just as their own brains once received. Love, care, and understanding become the building blocks of a community that lives more fully and sustainably. Imagine an avoidant person who once shrank from intimacy now boldly holds your hand in a crowded street. Someone who always dismissed their own feelings as frivolous now confidently says, "I feel sad today," and is truly heard. A person who believed, "I am invisible," suddenly recognizes not only their right to exist, but also their power to touch others' lives through their very presence. This rebirth does not happen overnight. It is a series of moments when you dare to pause, to feel, to open up, and to trust in yourself. Each time you do so, you discard a brick from the barrier between me and the world. Soon, that wall crumbles, allowing you and others to truly see one another through the open expanse of genuine connection. When you understand this, you will no longer fear being left in silence. You will smile at the moment someone listens to you, knowing you can do the same in the most profound way. You will stop hiding your emotions or fortifying yourself in protective shells, for you will realize that the presence of emotions, including the most painful, is what connects us most deeply. Ultimately, the life you and others once neglected helped create is not only a personal rebirth, but a silent revolution. Each heart seen, each story heard, each tear honored contributes to building a world where no one is left forgotten. Because you are not invisible, you are being reborn. And in that rebirth, the world around you becomes more complete and vibrant than ever before. If you were once that child sitting quietly in the corner of the room, waiting for someone to ask, "What are you thinking about?" then today you have the right to ask that question of yourself. Pause and tune into the echo within. What am I feeling right now? This is not just a simple question. It is a declaration of your right to acknowledge your emotions, no matter how unclear or chaotic they may be. You need not dismiss your sadness or hide your loneliness as a burden. You have the right to be tired, to feel disappointment, and to express all these emotional shades without asking permission from anyone. You do not have to have no needs in order to be loved. No one can demand that you camouflage your feelings to deserve affection. In fact, it is precisely when you dare to show up in all your authenticity that you truly open the door to deep empathy and genuine care from others. You do not have to be invisible to remain in someone's heart. Your presence is not a fragile object that must be hidden away for safety. You are the protagonist, not a fading subtitle in the background. Every laugh, every tear, every dream, and every fear you hold is valuable, has its own voice, and deserves to be heard. Have the courage to say out loud, "Today I feel sad. Today I feel joy. Today I feel fear. Today I feel hope." These words do not make you weak. On the contrary, they are proof of your bravery and self-respect. When you acknowledge your own emotional worth, you also grant others permission to draw near, to understand, and to share in your experience. Relationships thus become deeper and more enduring. If you still have doubts, remember that you deserve to be seen just as no one in the past stayed long enough to see you fully. You have the power to initiate this miracle. Pause, turn inward, and give yourself the most respectful gaze. Each day, when you ask and answer, "What am I feeling right now?" you are gifting yourself something priceless, the gift of full presence and the right to be human with every emotion. Believe that from this moment on, you are no longer the invisible child you once were. You have grown, and in that growth, you carry the right to exist, the right to be loved, and the right to be seen completely. Begin this new journey by engaging in a dialogue with yourself, and you will discover with wonder the world outside is also waiting for you to show up not just as a shadow, but with your voice and your heart.